Illness. We have a female husky, and one night at around 1:00 a.m. we suddenly heard her crying and whining in a way we'd never heard before. I opened my bedroom door, and she immediately ran inside and jumped onto my bed. Hi everyone. My dad passed away a little over 2 months ago from cancer. He had just turned 63 years old. My younger sister is 23, and I'm 32. Over the past few weeks, several things have happened that I honestly can't explain. My younger sister has a few floating shelves mounted on her wall, where she keeps her collection of figures, vinyl records, and other memorabilia. Several times now, different items have suddenly fallen off the shelves for no apparent reason. Then, the day before yesterday, at my grandmother's house, she noticed that an old framed photo of my sister as a little girl had somehow ended up on the floor. The odd part is that it had been sitting securely on a piece of furniture, and there doesn't seem to be any reasonable way it could have simply fallen. It almost looked as if it had been thrown. There are a couple of other things that have happened since my dad passed away. The room where he died is now completely empty, yet on 2 separate occasions I've been the one to find the light in that room turned on, even though no one had been using it. Another moment that has stayed with me happened while I was home alone. I was sitting in the living room thinking about my dad and crying when the lamp in the same room suddenly switched on. It could have been an electrical issue or just a coincidence, and I'm not claiming it was anything supernatural, but it happened at a very emotional moment and it definitely caught my attention. I'm generally pretty skeptical when it comes to paranormal or supernatural things, but my dad definitely wasn't. He was fascinated by the subject. He loved watching horror videos, reading about metaphysics, learning about astral projection, and he strongly believed in synchronicity. More than anything, he genuinely wanted to experience something paranormal for himself. He wasn't afraid of it at all. He was deeply curious. Even during the final stages of his illness, when he was already very weak, he would sometimes speak out loud, asking that if there was something or someone there, they should manifest themselves by moving a door or giving some kind of sign. As far as I know, nothing ever happened while he was doing that, but it was something he sincerely hoped to experience. Long before he was diagnosed with cancer, he told us about a few experiences that really stuck with him. One night, while he was living alone and using the bathroom in the middle of the night, he heard what sounded like growling just outside the bathroom. Though when he opened it, there was nothing there. On other occasions, he said he would hear 3 distinct knocks on his bedroom door, only to find no one there. Many years earlier, when my parents were still together, they left a tape recorder running overnight on my dad's nightstand. The next day, when they listened to the recording, they said they could hear what sounded like dozens of male voices chanting in unison, almost like a religious choir. They never found an explanation. My mom and dad also both claimed they once saw a DVD suddenly fly off a shelf. According to my dad, whenever he was going through a particularly difficult or emotional period, unusual things seemed to happen around him. Lights would flicker, objects would fall or move unexpectedly, and similar incidents. Something else that has been on my mind happened just a few weeks before he passed away. While he was in the hospital, a man who appeared to be a priest or hospital chaplain unexpectedly approached only my dad and my younger sister, who was with him at the time, and gave them a blessing. As far as I've experienced, that's simply not something that normally happens in Mexico. Whether it's in a public or private hospital, he wasn't walking around blessing every patient, he only approached them. That made the moment feel very unusual to us. Around that same time, I also found a small religious card tucked under the windshield wiper of my car with a Bible verse on it. By itself, that obviously doesn't prove anything, but because my dad believed so strongly in synchronicity, it has always stayed in the back of my mind. Shortly before he died, while he was at home in his own bedroom, my dad also told us that he was seeing people in the room with him. Personally, I think this was most likely caused by his illness, his medications, or delirium, which I know is common in seriously ill patients. Still, I thought it was worth mentioning, because it was part of his final days. One more thing I remembered happened during the early stages of my dad's illness. We have a female husky, and one night at around 1:00 a.m. we suddenly heard her crying and whining in a way we'd never heard before. I opened my bedroom door, and she immediately ran inside and jumped onto my bed. She looked absolutely terrified. I let her stay with me and spent about an hour petting her until she finally calmed down and fell asleep curled up tightly against me. I've never seen her that frightened before or since. My sister has also told me that, even before my dad became ill, she had the same dream 2 or 3 different times. In it, she would see what she described as the same demonic-looking figure. I know recurring dreams can happen for all kinds of psychological reasons, but it felt worth mentioning because she always described the exact same entity. As for me, I've always considered myself an atheist. I've never believed in bleep or anything supernatural. My dad often claimed he didn't believe either, but honestly, I always felt that wasn't completely true because of how fascinated he was by these subjects. When he became seriously ill, I found myself praying for him anyway. I know it sounds strange coming from someone who doesn't believe, but when someone you love is dying, you end up doing things you never imagined you would. Since he passed away, I've mostly felt anger and resentment toward that belief, if one exists at all. I still don't know what I believe. Part of me looks for ordinary explanations for everything I've written here. Another part can't help but wonder if there's something we're missing. I'm not posting this because I'm trying to convince anyone that the paranormal is real. If anything, I've spent my whole life being skeptical. I'm simply sharing what my family and I have experienced because, despite being skeptical for most of my life, losing my dad has made me question things I never thought I would. Has anyone else experienced anything similar after losing someone they love? Whether you think there's a completely rational explanation or something beyond it, I'd genuinely like to hear your perspective.